Okay, this is chapter 8 from the book. This chapter is titled The SAT. It's about SAT and also insights on reading. Junior year of high school, I went on Friday night before the SAT test. At that time, my plan in life was to be a wrestler at Iowa, national champion, perhaps an Olympic champion, then probably coach wrestling in a college, something like that. I couldn't have cared less about some silly test that I was forced to take. I didn't realize SAT test, ACT test is really an opportunity. I did reasonably well on the SAT, but a lot of kids in my high school scored higher than I did. The real question is, why did I do as well as I had? Okay, and here's the reason. Reading. Personal reading builds the mind. The vocabulary in nonfiction books is orders of magnitude greater than what is vocabulary or routine conversation. And that in novels and science textbooks is an even additional order of magnitude greater. The more you read, the more your vocabulary grows. And the bigger your vocabulary, the more you can understand, the more things the more you have known to associate new things to. The better you can speak, the more precisely you can express yourself, the better you can write. It's great for developing the mind. And the more precisely you can think, the better grades you get in school. You can think your way into the mind of the teacher with your mirror neurons and your perceptual and contextual abilities. Also, the better scores you're going to get on the SAT, ACT in vocabulary, reading comprehension. My father is from Ireland. He grew up on a dirt floor, so poor. They lived in a little house next to the factory. Almost all the boys in town ended up working at the factory. Were very poor all their lives. He was lucky. His mother read a lot, and he imitated her. He read a lot. He became a really good student, and he was able to, get a scholarship for education because of that. Growing up, I imitated my dad, reading a lot, and that was a good habit. My dad was working all the time. Hardly ever got to talk to him. At night, he'd read in his bed, listen to classical music, was understood, let him sleep, family, leave him alone. My mother enforced that pretty strongly. My dad's older brother had been a physicist, and he had another brother who was a psychiatrist, and he would come over to the house, and they would argue about books. And I would sit there as a kid watching, my dad and my uncle arguing about books, and it was the cool thing to do in my house. My Uncle John was really obnoxious. He was always insulting my father, insulting me, called me stupid, and that pissed me off. He's the kind of guy, he'd read a book that weekend, and then he'd, come in the next day, and he would quiz you about the book he just read. And the questions were impossible if you hadn't just read the book. And he would say things to me like, I said to my mom, why you invite that guy over? He's obnoxious. My mom just did it because, my dad liked talking to him. And she said, we don't take him seriously. He would say things like to me, what would you know about the war, Nam? You're just a young idiot. Oh, look, the son is as stupid as the father. Constantly stuff like that. And but it motivated me to read. I'd try to read and have a stack of books ready that I had read before he'd come over because I wanted to challenge him back. But, as a kid, I wasn't really able to, hold up my end of the conversation that well. And I think, in retrospect, maybe he was just teasing me. I wanted to be well-read like my father, to be able to defend myself in open debate and be able to stand up against obnoxious people like my Uncle John. In retrospect, this is really a good thing. My father was a hero to me at the time, and I think it's good for boys growing up to look up to their fathers as a role model because, who else is going to try to give them a good role model? If they're lucky, they'll find additional folks, while they're young, but it's a challenge. So it was a big deal for me to go with my father to the bookstore every couple of months, and he'd buy 10 books for himself, 5 books for me, and I would try to read the books, try to talk to him with my dad. And again, I hardly saw the guy. It'd be one day a month I get a chance to talk to my dad about the books I read. Okay, I couldn't wait for that. I had a big bookshelf in my room, and I read every book on that shelf, and I was real proud. I'd say, look at my bookshelf. I read every book on that shelf. And so I also had a big brother who was, kind of strong, and there's only a couple channels on a TV, but you walk in a TV room at your own risk, and he's not going to let you watch what you want. So in a sense, that was good. Kept me out of the TV room. And I think a kid, it's good for them to read anything they want, because that's going to get them to read. That's going to get them to pay attention and to learn from it. I think comic books are fine. Whatever the kid wants. The kid's got some hobby they're interested in, let them read about it. It builds this scaffold of vocabulary and word associations in their mind that then speeds up their ability to process information and progressively more complex information. And I think that's why, even though I didn't take honors classes or anything in high school, because I liked reading, I did pretty well. And I was always good at things like vocabulary, spelling bee, and all that. Now that I have kids of my own, I noticed that my kid that reads got a much better vocabulary than the ones who don't. So senior year in high school, like I said, I couldn't wrestle because of my injury, and I went out for the cross country team, and that was kind of like nerd headquarters. They were the smartest guys in the high school. And Jay Ream, the guy I talked about, he was on a cross country team, and there were other really smart guys. I heard them talking about their SAT scores. They've done better than me, and I know that Jay crushed the SATs, and I sort of felt like, gosh, maybe I'm not a wrestler anymore. And I hated the fact they'd all done better than me. I felt, man, I got to improve. I know I could do better. That's another thing too. When someone else can do something, what I say to myself is, well, why can't I? Why can't I? Instead of just saying, oh, gee, they're better than me. I say, no, why can't I? I mean, there's some things in life you can't fix. A lot of things you can't fix. But there's also a lot of things you can fix and make better. And why can't I improve? Why can't I learn more? Why can't I become smarter? You can do it too. Okay, and this book's going to help you. All right. Anyways, so I bought one of those SAT prep books and just studied on my own. And my score went up a tremendous amount. I'm like, wow, it's possible. Because the word on the street at that time was that you could not improve it. It was an IQ test. You had a fixed score. There's nothing you could do to improve your score, your IQ, so to speak. Well, you know what? That's not true. The reality of the matter is it's not an aptitude test. It's an achievement test, how much you've learned up to that point. And you can learn a lot more before the test and keep on scoring better. And why not do it? That's an important test for getting into colleges, for what people judge your academic abilities for. So why not optimize your score? I did the same thing, took it again, and my score went up even more. I think overall my score went up at least 200, 250 points or so. And I ended up having a pretty high score. And that was a big learning experience. Oh, plus here's a trick. I'll tell you a trick. Here's how they get you on the SAT, ACT test. They intentionally put too many questions that a regular person just showing up for the test isn't going to be able to finish on time because there's so many questions. And then what's the logic of that? The examiner say, well, we put a lot of questions there because that way a smarter person, higher IQ, is going to be able to finish them, and someone else won't. It's a way that we can spread out the distribution of scores to find out the really highest scores. And you know what? By preparing for the test, being more familiar with the questions, by being more familiar with the format of the question, the content of the questions, you'll be able to finish more fast, and you'll do a lot better. So, bottom line is, knowledge of the game, of the format, is to your advantage. So, whatever standardized test you're taking, learn about it. And I came eventually to like standardized tests because the standardized test, it's relatively objective. And the opposite being a class where you hand in a piece of written material. The teacher better like what you're doing, okay? You better write the way the teacher likes. Versus standardized tests, you can compete with people from anywhere. Big fancy school, so what? You can go to a school no one's ever heard of, and you can score higher than them. So it's an opportunity in that sense. Okay.